Welcome back to another trade recap. This is going to be from Wednesday, November 22nd. The last few days in the market have been hot. We're getting some volatility and there's nice range, and I've been taking advantage of it. I ended up taking two trades today, both to the downside on Tesla and Nvidia. The thought process and the idea of the Tesla trade happened to be right. I just got out a little too soon. It went against me, bailed on it, but the idea was right because it did have a nice move to the downside. I ended up taking a small loss on the Tesla trade. And then I went to the Nvidia downside opening range break after reporting earnings, had the elevated volume, and then got the nice downside move and had a solid win on that Nvidia trade that made up for the Tesla trade and a lot more to be up $1,380 on the day. So I'm going to go over the technicals pretty quickly on both. We'll start with Tesla since that was the first trade that I took. And to be honest, I was leaning more to the upside. Why? Because look at this day one move out of some of the consolidation back above the 50 SMA. So I was looking at this prior day high, this 243.62. If it could get above that, I was thinking that maybe we could have some more upside continuation. But this is also going to show a really good reason as to why you have to be open-minded both ways in the stock market. Have the idea of what something could possibly do, but if there is an aggressive reaction the other way, that's where the experience comes in, where I can just kind of flip my bias real quick based on the candlesticks and the price action. But looking at that prior day high, 243.62. Also, this pre-market high right around 243.45. Look at the consolidation. We can clear this out to the upside, turn these levels into support. Maybe Tesla can get some momentum to the upside for a day two move. So that was the thought process and the idea coming in. And then you'll see my trade just reacting to this failed push. It allowed me to think that maybe we could go to the downside because of a false breakout. I ended up taking that trade to the downside, got out a little too soon, but the thought process was correct. So that was really the main levels that I was looking at. I'm also going to be watching pre-market low, prior day low. It was pretty far from prior day low, but I always mark out those levels every single day. Prior day high, prior day low, pre-market high, pre-market low on every stock that I'm watching. Now let's get into Nvidia. So Nvidia was the main watch of the day. It was in play because it reported earnings. So it was going to have the potential for a large move off the open, especially because it opened flat. It wasn't opening too high and it wasn't opening too low, which sometimes can cause some choppiness. Just opening flat on the day and right near that 500. So I was looking at prior day high, which is going to be right around 505, and then looking at prior day low, which was 492.22. It was pretty far away, but you never know. If it can get going in one direction, it could easily get there. So looking at prior day high, prior day low, pre-market high right around 507, and then pre-market low right around 490. So those were the main levels that I was going to be looking at on both of these stocks. And now it was just about waiting for the open, waiting for that price action to take place, any sort of rejection of certain levels, or do we have a consolidation, eventually choose a direction, and then have a nice move in that direction. And I just want to wait for that trend and hop on board. So looking at this price action on Tesla, what happened off the open? It pushed right into those two technical levels above and it could not turn them into support. So what I thought could possibly be a breakout looks like a false breakout. So those levels are clear resistance, and look at these wicks on these 2-minute candles. This is why I like 2-minute candles, because they can really tell a story. Nasty rejection of those technical levels, had to push up into VWAP, a really aggressive rejection of VWAP, and just those wicks are telling me a story that if buyers tried to jump in that for a breakout, they're now underwater. So when it rejected that VWAP, went to go make a new low, also a green to red move, I hopped into the 240 puts, 5 of them, and I got a fill price at $2.82. The crazy thing about this trade, it only took $1,410 to be involved in it. But what I really wanted to see here was this stay red. So we had a failed breakout move, and then we went from green to red, that prior day close line. I wanted this to stay under prior day close. My mindset was thinking if we flip back above this, we did have some strength in the prior day. So any move lower could be kind of a dip buy, into demand type of situation. So the moment that this kind of started to show wick off that 241, and then I was, the mentality was if this gets back over that prior day close, I'm probably not the only one that maybe thought that this going red could potentially lead to a bigger downside move. I wanted it to go pretty quickly. And the moment that this kind of flipped back above that prior day close, I started to think in my mind that this may not have the move I was thinking it could have, or at least my timing of it could be incorrect. And I don't want to be involved in some sort of big squeeze. So when this got back up to that 242, I ended up just getting out of it just to be safe. That was more of a safe play because it did not go quick, but in all reality, this stayed below VWAP and the 9 EMA, or even a lot of times when I talk about giving it like a candle high or a candle low stop. If you look at that prior candle high, 242.80, that should have been my out when I go back and look at this. I just didn't want to take a big loss and be patient. You know, if it's not going to go relatively quickly in my favor, and especially when it flips back above a technical level, that prior day close, knowing the personality of Tesla and also that prior day strength, just to be safe, I got out of it and accepted a small loss on the trade. Now let's break down the NVIDIA trade. So what happened? A little bit of a pullback off the open, and then it flipped pretty quickly above prior day close. Also got above 500, going to be a psychological level. Looked like it was good for the breakout. And then that nasty candle clearly rejected that 503, and then it gets back below 500, so rejecting 500. And this feels like this could possibly go the other way simply just because of a fake breakout. It's now below technical levels, below prior day close, below 500, the VWAP, and the 9 EMA. So I went for the 495 puts. I got a fill price at $6.19, trying to anticipate the low of day break, the opening range break to the downside for potential momentum to the downside. And this is where, you know, sometimes things do not go your way immediately. And I was trying to just be cool and also realize that we are still under technical levels. So it's nice that when I can hop in a trade and it goes immediately in my favor, that's great. But it's not always going to be the case. So now it was just about watching this candle. I did not like that. When it came down to those lows and there's that huge bottoming wick, you know, my mind was thinking that I may take a loss on this. But rather than freak out, I was just thinking in my mind, okay, we are below 500. We're below that prior day close, that white line you can see right there, 499.44. We're also below the VWAP and the 9 EMA. As long as we stay below that, I want to see if this has the potential to continue to the downside. And also really watching this candle high. So when the candle closes and that next one opens, I'm keeping an eye right around that 498. And if this were to have flipped over that 498 pretty aggressively, I would have just taken my loss. And it would have sucked, but it is what it is. You know, I want to make sure to try to protect the account. But you can see here that it just gets stuck under that 498 and it's still below all those technical levels. So as this candle is forming, it does not get back above that prior candle high. And as a matter of fact, it's getting stuck below it and showing more weakness. As this candle starts to form, I'm thinking that my thesis is still in play. And then also realizing that 495.50 to 495, kind of that low a day consolidation, if we can end up clearing that out, knowing that NVIDIA reported earnings, it has the elevated volume, it just did a 500 whole number psych level rejection. If we end up clearing out those lows and we turn those lows into resistance, this did have technical levels below. It had prior day low, it had pre-market low, and sometimes when these stocks can get going in one direction, they can have huge moves. And this candle, I feel pretty good about it. Because as it's coming down to these lows, if we clear that out, knowing that the volume is going to be very high on this and probably got a lot of people stuck over that 500 breakout, that this could really get going. And if so, I feel good about my position. And that's exactly what happens. It comes down to this 495, and I wanted to see this break pretty quickly. I knew that was an important level, and we get that instant break. And then once this thing breaks that 495, you know, it just starts to speed up to the downside. And then now it's just about holding on for the ride. How far down can this go? I have no idea, but I feel pretty good about my position now because anybody who even tried to dip buy off that 495, they're now underwater as well. So let's see if I can't hold on for a couple candles. And then when I get that really aggressive washout, I'm obviously just going to take my profits when I get that. And this ended up being a crazy move. So in that 2-minute candle, closed kind of weak, little bit of a bottoming wick there, but this next candle is important. If we make a new low, then I think there's going to be more downside. It's kind of playing games that 494, kind of a wick off it, but I'm now in the money. So if these contracts get back to my entry price, I'm going to get out flat. But we end up coming to those lows, not only get to those lows, we take them out and we have an insane drop. And it's now coming into some technical levels, prior day low and pre-market low. And if you think about where I got short, kind of right around that 496, 495.50 area. So even though this ended up going a lot lower than where I got out, you know, for me, when I can get quick moves like this, I'm always just going to take those profits. And if you look at the percentage at the bottom of the screen, first off, it's only a $3,000 position. And as this thing starts to speed up to the downside, if you look at the percent, we're at 32%, 33%. I think when it was all said and done, the trade was like a 50% winner. I mean, whenever I can get a 50% winner on options, I'm always going to take that. I do not want to be greedy and look for more regardless of what the chart is telling me, because I know that if Nvidia finds some support and has an aggressive bounce against me, or at least a bounce back to the upside, those option premiums are going to start to drain. But we end up clearing out some technical levels. Now I just want to see how does this react at 490, kind of a whole number. We come into that 490, just want to see if we can get below that or we bounce off it. And now look at the extension to the downside. Any sort of move, aggressive washout, I just want to take those profits. And right there, when we lost that 490, quick move to the downside, I ended up just taking profits. That's a huge move. I will take that every single time. I got a fill price in those contracts, $6.19, and I took profits on them at $9.44 for a sick move. And that was it. After those two trades, done on the day. Minus 245 on Tesla, plus 1625 on Nvidia to be net up 1380. That's an awesome day. That was the trade recap. I appreciate you watching the video. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.